How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk, guys. So I've been getting a lot of emails. People have been asking me about Wade Wilson's tattoos. Not so much the specific meaning behind each tattoo, but rather the importance of its placement, the neck or above. So granted, I have about seven sections we're going to touch on today that's going to talk about the importance of what we feel could relate to that placement. But again, it's just a perspective. Now, mind you, there are some people that do have these tattoos that, you know, above the neck or above the face that won't fit into this. But for the most part, when you're in the prison setting, this is how it could be seen, whether it's from staff, whether it's from your the other inmates. So placement does matter, especially when you start to get the placement above the neck and in the face, because it's definitely something that could be seen by everyone. And I think it will make for a good discussion. So again, we're not going to break down the specifics of each tattoo. Well, there's maybe one or two we'll talk about, and I'll explain why behind that as well. But let me get Joe on. So Joe, what's up, Joe? Oh, you're muted already, Joe.
Well, look at you trying to shut me up already. What's happening, brother?
What's going on, Joe? Joe, you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Texas Department of Corrections of 29 years and 6 months. Currently working as a assistant jail administrator in our local sheriff's department and a panel member here for Tier Talk.
Yeah, Joe, it's going to be a good discussion, hopefully a quick discussion. I just want to show you a picture real quick. See, that's a picture of Wade Wilson. He's got a bunch of tattoos both on his left and right side of the face. He looked like when he was arrested during his time in the jail system, while he was waiting for trial, he started to build his tattoos, I believe, from the neck up. And by 2024, bang, he had the tattoos on his face and on his neck. And a lot of people were a little bit shocked because they were wondering what the heck's up with this transformation. Now, granted, the two tattoos that shocked people the most were the two swastikas. There's one below his right eye and one by his temple. A lot of people obviously know the swastika could relate to white supremacy. In this case here, they believe it connected him to a group called the Unforgiven, which is a known white supremacist group. You can actually see a little bit of information about them in this website, the ADL. I think that's the Anti-Defamation League, or they list all the white supremacist gangs. They keep very good track, and it's actually a very good tool for law enforcement, but it is a public website. Now, granted, I want to mention one thing. We're not going to break into too much of the specifics of what each tattoo means, because I know a lot of people think that reading tattoos is easy. It's not. A lot of the tattoos that people get could also be very, very subjective, which means that you may think you know what it means, and the person could play you, but at the end of the day, it can mean something totally different. You know, so it's technically, you really got to talk to that individual and get an understanding of what that tattoo means, at least to them. Because it's funny, sometimes you get a lot of gang investigators that they see a mark and they automatically go in there, and without asking questions, they want to brag about their knowledge, and they get right into that inmate's face and they say, well, I know this means A, B, C, D. And the inmate will be like, okay. And they let him run with it. And it turns out the investigator may think he's right, but the inmate let him run with it, because in the end, that's not what it means. But instead of the detective or the investigator, whoever's handling the gangs, instead of them being more open to listening to what the inmate has to say, they go in there just to brag about their knowledge and start, saying, I know that this means this means this. And the inmate may just go along with it. And at the end, this investigator may, I got that moment. And it's like, you don't. The inmate kind of played you, because, you went in thinking it means this. And unfortunately, he just kind of played you out. What you got to do is you got to kind of play like you don't know and see how you can get them to open up. And then within context, you can start making some levels of guesses based on what you may know in your own experience. But more importantly, the context of what you're developing through that engagement with the inmate, or whoever you're trying to validate. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yeah, it does, because nowadays there's so much out there that so many different groups, not just the white supremacy groups, but there's so many different versions and cliques of Bloods and Crips and Tongo Blast and just all kinds of groups out there that, the STG investigators now, at least in Texas, we cannot confirm based on tattoos alone. There's got to be a bunch of steps with evidence other than tattoos. So, jumping to conclusions doesn't always lead to the best finish. The main thing is to take your time with the investigation, look at the totality of everything, looking at their mail, looking at their doing property searches, looking at their pictures, whatever it is they get as far as correspondence, just to be sure that you have additional evidence other than tattoos. Because, nowadays tattoos they can be gang affiliation or they can be symbolic. You just don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes, for example, people may see TTP and think it's automatically Treetop Pyru, and it could just mean something totally different. It could be someone's initials, but either way. So guys, now remember, nothing's 100%. We're going to provide a perspective. I think it's a very informative perspective meant to influence dialogue. But again, nothing here we're saying is definitive. This is exactly what it is. It's more of just a dialogue to provide an interesting perspective that may not have been provided on other platforms. So again, if you look at this, this is not how he looked when he first got in. He had a clear face, and then eventually what happened is he wind up starting to get the tattoos. And by the beginning, by the time he went to trial in 2024, he was marked up, and a lot of people thought that was unique because he's going up for trial. Why would you want to go ahead and do that to your face? Why would you want the jury, whoever it is, to see you in that light? And the funny thing is, and again, this is where we get into the perspective. I think Wade Wilson knew where his future is going to be. And I think at one point he accepted it. So now he starts to embrace it. And I think part of it was, I think he really does like this tough guy perspective. And I think one of the sections we're going to go over is going to talk about attention seeking or validation. But I think that he likes it. And I think even though and some people may think it's a foolish move, that he did that right before trial. What was he thinking? But if his only goal is to get attention and to paint that picture that, he's a bad MF, he's doing exactly what he wants to do. In his mind, it's goal oriented. And what he did does paint the picture of what he wanted the public to perceive. And I truly do believe he's someone that does want attention. He's not someone that's hiding from his crime. He's someone where there's a moment, there's an opportunity to talk about his crime on TV or, whatever it is. I mean, he wants that attention. He wants that media attention. And I want to mention one last thing before we get into this dialogue. A lot of people will push that they want the tattoos covered up before they go into court because it creates a bias to the jurors. But sometimes the funny thing about that too is that some of these tattoos also let you know their connection to the criminal world, like a swastika in case he is connected to this group. So I don't want to say it's necessarily a bias, but it's also information. It's information of who this person may be and who they're connected to. And sometimes I feel the reverse. When you go to cover him up, you're creating a bias of a person who may be completely have that innocent look when technically it's breaking away from who this person really is. So I think that can go both ways. I get why the defense may want to say that creates a bias. Yeah, but if that's who he really is, then you're creating the bias. What's your thoughts on that, Joe, before we move forward?
Yeah, I think, going into court looking like that, especially from your booking photo, I think it creates more of a distraction than it does anything. It keeps it takes the juror's mind off of what's actually being portrayed in the courtroom, because he's got all these tattoos. Does it cause a bias? It possibly. Should it sway the verdict? No, because tattoos don't always tell a person's story, and tattoos doesn't make the person truthful.
But right, but I also think that sometimes the tattoo does tell who the person is. And then when you cover it up, like in this case, this could be who this person is. I mean, think about when he did it. He did it when he was getting ready to go to trial. So getting ready to accept the lifestyle that he's going to be entering. So I get it, but I think sometimes the push to cover the tattoos could also be protecting who this person really is. And at the end, who does the jury need to see? The jury needs to see, technically, to some extent, what the victim saw that night. You know, I mean, even let's take a look at even Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was this guy that everybody thought he was this great person, could charm, but talked to some of his victims and they saw he was who he really was. And I think some cases, the jurors may need to see a glimpse of that, you know, what the victim saw last. It's a tough call, though. It's something that I'm sure it goes back and forth before they finally make the decision. So I got a couple of things. Now, again, this doesn't apply to everyone who has tattoos above the neck or on the face, but in the prison setting, 99% of the time, when people have tattoos, the neck or above, these are tattoos that they want to be visible, maybe even going so far as over here. It's going to fall, I believe, into these 7 categories that I have here. And again, it's going to be interpreted that way through staff, possibly, and also other inmates. It's kind of like, you know, a piece of their identity. And this is kind of where we start off with. So, again, guys, we're talking about placement. We're not talking about the specifics of the tattoos, but the importance of placement. So one of the first things I took note of was the symbol of identity. So I got for Wade Wilson, the placement of tattoos on his face could be interpreted as a symbol of identity linked to his criminal actions or lifestyle. So inmates like Wilson often use facial tattoos to project an image of defiance, toughness, or dominance, signaling to others their peace in the hierarchy of prison life. So for someone who committed such brutal acts, these tattoos might reflect a hardened identity forged through violence, marking his outward appearance with symbols of the life choices that led him to prison. I think the key thing about this one, Joe, is when you have that above your neck and on your face, I really do relate to this number one. It's someone who could be promoting this as their identity, as who they are, and in some cases, what they're capable of doing. What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, depending on, you know, who he was in his former life prior to, you know, his criminal act, you know, it could absolutely be a symbol of his identity. And, you know, now that he's resigned to doing his time, he may just now be getting around to, you know, putting the tattoos on himself to kind of show the symbol of his identity. It may be something showing that who he's truly been the whole time, or, you know, something that, you know, he may truly be in the future.
And the funny thing about this, now I'm going to relate more to number 4 when it comes to Wade Wilson. I will say something about this with the prison. People may want to put these tattoos up hoping that this is seen as their symbol of their as a symbol of their identity. But in the prison setting, when a lot of people have these tattoos like that, you know, people like this may not always stand out like they would in the real world. So what that happens, this is when they get tested. So when you have those tattoos and you start promoting this as your identity, there are going to be some people that are going to get in your face and kind of like automatically react to that. And they're going to want to test how serious you are with the stuff that's on your face. And in this case here, let's even say the swastikas. But with that said, I also think it was pretty safe for Wade Wilson to do this because Wade Wilson also knew most likely that he wouldn't be going into GP, that he would be either be going into some protective custody, at least for a bit, but definitely he got the death row sentence. So he's not going to be interacting with a lot of inmates. So, I mean, the likelihood of him getting challenged because of where he placed those tattoos or the type of tattoos he has, may not be as severe as other inmates that are going to be going to the system who are going to go right into GP, who other inmates could question their identity. So with that said, Joe, I mean, again, those tattoos could symbolize who you are, or they could symbolize who you want to be until you get tested, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, either way, you know, the placement, you know, especially the swastikas was kind of curious to me because, you know, he's got to know that going into a prison environment, he's going to get tested. He's going to get checked by every white supremacist group that's in the penitentiary. You don't just that's not just something that you put on yourself at free will, unless your heart is into that. Going into the prison environment, having those on his neck is definitely going to cause him issues at the onset. But then again, it may be who he's been all along.
Right. And guys, some people do believe he does have some ties to the Unforgiven group, because there was a connection to an escape that he was involved with that could have had some connection to that group, but it hasn't been confirmed. But I figure at this point here, because of how popular he is, that would have been confirmed already. So the fact that it's still up in the air years later makes me wonder if he does have that connection. But he does have the swastika, which he's definitely willing to promote some level of having that white supremacist ideology. But it doesn't mean he may be affiliated with a gang. It just means that he could believe in the white supremacist ideology. So then the other thing the next one I got, and for number 2, is I got rebellion and nonconformity. So for Wilson's choice to tattoo his face might also represent a deeper rebellion against societal norms. So by placing tattoos in such a visible location, he might be making a permanent statement of rejection of societal standards, authority, or remorse. I see that. The tattoos serve as a bold visual act of defiance, communicating that he is not concerned with how the world perceives him. So for someone convicted of such violent crimes, this may also signal a complete disconnect from societal norms. I do got a list of some of the tattoos he has. So he has a large swastika on his head, a smaller swastika under his right eye, stitches that extend past his mouth, the word glory on his temple, a shadow of a skull on his left face, the word ha 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 below the corner of his eye. So there's a couple of things. And that in context with what he's done, the timing of the tattoos, how he holds himself when he's at trial, you got to assume that the context of this all is to promote a tougher image. So I there's a part of this to me that I do accept when it says the rebellion and nonconformity, and it says it could be a statement of a rejection of remorse. I feel that a little bit. What's your thoughts on this, Joe?
Yeah, given anybody with any kind of common sense is not going to get themselves tatted up before a major trial such as this, especially those styles. The rebellion is definitely there. I think with the tattoos that he has, he's just I think he's just given the illusion that he just doesn't give a shit. I think he understands where he's going, and I think he's quite comfortable with it. The one that intrigues me is the stitches or the zipper or whatever it is he's got going across his lips. That to me is kind of showing rebellion, saying to me it tells me that he can't be silenced. So I see rebellion. Not so much the nonconformity, because of the fact that I've over the course of 30 years I've had several inmates that were tatted from head to toe. Were most respectful to the staff, but they weren't the style of inmate that kept quiet about things either. If something was wrong, they were definitely going to let you know. Especially if it wasn't going their way. So I think he's more on a rebellion streak than anything.
Yeah, I think it's like, I like what you're saying, Joe. I think it's a mixture of a few things, but I think I think he can almost fit almost every category here. This one right here is the one I'm focusing on a little bit more, the attention-seeking validation. That's only because when I watched the video with him and his father, I kind of saw some things where he really wanted that attention. He wanted to kind of get the media there when he would be telling everybody where the body of Ruiz was. But the attention-seeking and validation, Wilson's facial tattoos could be seen as a form of attention-seeking, a way to command the gaze of others, particularly in an environment where intimidation and power dynamics play a central role. He may have used his tattoos to project a more menacing or dangerous image, seeking validation within the criminal world by making himself look even more fearsome. And this attention-seeking behavior may also extend to how he interacts with the media or authorities, and using his tattoos as part of his overall tough guy persona. I want to mention something. So he knew having these tattoos, would be out there when he's out in trial. So I don't think that this was more for anything inside the prison. I don't think he put these tattoos up to, try to, maybe put a little intimidation towards staff or to other inmates, because he was going right into like a death row or like a PC area anyway while he's going through trial. Then eventually when he hit the Florida system, he'd be going through death row. So I think everything he did here, the timing of it all was to get out there, go on trial, and let the public see him in this fashion. This wasn't about what's happening behind the wall. This was about him showcasing the public that he's this fearsome individual. And again, if you look at the dialogue he had with his father during those conversations, he embraces this image of being a monster to some extent. So I think this fits very well with who he is, unfortunately. But Joe, what's your thoughts? Attention. See, I'm not going to say so much validation, because I think he doesn't need validation. It's not something he's seeking. Well, wait a second. I just thought of something. So I think he truly believes he's this monster. I do. But he may seek the validation, not to confirm that, but to feed that.
Exactly.
If that makes sense. So, let me correct that thought. But what's your thoughts on this, Joe?
I kind of agree with you. I don't think it was so much for the validation myself. I think because of the crime he committed and where he knows he's going, I think for him this is purely shock and awe. I do believe that he's trying to put himself out there as being notorious. As a high profile crime, he wants to be. I think he's trying to get the attention that all the other high profile murders. I think he wants to be above them all. That's why I feel that the tattoos were purely a shock and awe moment for him. To show the world. I don't really think it's anything that he's embracing. I purely believe that he knows he's going to go to prison either for the rest of his life or he's going to get the death penalty. And that, he wants to be remembered. He wants to be marked down in a history book somewhere. I don't honestly think that he did it because of the fact that, he's trying to intimidate a population of other offenders. Cause when it's said and done, he may be in PC until, he takes his last breath, either by natural causes or, by state execution.
Yeah, and what sometimes we may say use the word. What we really mean is even death row is some level of isolation. So I mean, it's not a normal GP setting. So his interaction with other inmates is going to be a lot less. So he may feel that it's easier to play this tough image to the public as opposed to going ahead and going back in the prison world and trying to play that tough image in a world that's going to be like, okay, now you're going to be tested on it. Because the question is, I'm very curious, I don't know if we'll ever know, but, if he was put directly in a GP setting where he could be challenged more, would he have done all this? Right. So again, the public's one thing, but inside that prison, it's a little bit different. This one is just an easy one. Affiliation or status. Facial tattoos in the prison system often have ties to gang affiliation or a signal of status with the inmate population, especially those that are above the neck. Usually those are people that usually have some serious stain or status. In the case of Wade Wilson, his tattoos might symbolize his affiliation with certain groups or factions within the criminal world, whether during his time outside or inside the prison. Such tattoos can also serve as a warning to others about his rank to the crimes he's committed. I don't think that would be the case for him. And tattoos are a form of communication among inmates, and Wilson's tattoos could be a visual code representing his criminal background or violent tendencies. I mean, that's pretty much, if you work in a prison, that's pretty much what you're going to see a big bulk of the time. I know a lot of gangs are now pushing away from the tattoos ever since RICO charges and stuff like that, because they don't want the RICO charges. They don't want the gang ties. I'm sorry, man. Well, RICO charges technically would fall into that, I'm sure. Yeah. But they don't want the organized crime ties, because they know that it offers greater sentences. So with that said, a lot of them are trying to break away from anything that could brand their affiliation. But with that said, in the prison setting, it's utilized also for protection, that you belong within a group. So on the street, you may want to hide the affiliation to some extent, but in the prison setting, yeah, you may need to kind of promote that connection for your own safety. So if you representing some symbols that are not, and you're not a true member of that gang that you're representing, your biggest threat will be from the gang you're trying to say you're a part of, or you're trying to say that you roll with. What's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, when it comes to tattoos, a lot of the public don't, they don't understand that, just because you put a tattoo on, you walk into the penitentiary, that things are just, normal. When you put tattoos such as swastika stickers on your neck, or, something that symbolizes or idolizes a confirmed clique or security threat group of any kind, and you walk into a penitentiary, you're going to get checked. They're going to test you. They're going to find out for sure what you're about. And, being in an environment where, prison gangs are, pretty rampant, pretty structured for the most part, they can find out information about these individuals. And if they're illegally repping a symbol that represents a certain clique or group, it could cause them a hell of a lot more harm than good. So, like I said, these tattoos aren't something that you just put on yourself out of free will just because, especially if you're not affiliated. That could cause you a lot more danger than, being in general population itself.
Yeah. And guys, just to let you know, and we'll probably get to it when we talk about cultural or spiritual significance, but, some of these symbols, obviously they mean things. So this goes beyond you believing it. This goes beyond you having to earn it, especially when you get to those higher areas where the gang's going to wonder, have you earned those symbols? Now, granted, you may come in with that symbol and it may not be related to a gang, but it may be something you believe in. But when you're in the gang, when you're in that prison, you're going to have to remove it if you're not a part of that gang. I don't care if you believe in that symbol or not. That is our logo. That is what we roll. And unless you're a part of us, we didn't give you permission to have that tattoo. So with that said, this goes way beyond a belief. If you're going to rock something that, let's say, most of us associate with, then you better have earned it. Because at the end of the day, we've earned our symbols. We've earned the tats, especially, as I said, the tats that go up here, because these are the tats that everybody sees. These are the tats that you'll be definitely tested on. I mean, you see some inmates, too, that got some crazy tats that they may have wore out on the streets where they may have had this tougher image, but then when they get into the prison setting, they know that they may not want anybody to see that tat. So they're always wearing a shirt or something. It's not always up in the face. It could be on the body. So they're always wearing their shirt. And there are guys that, unless you're the officer doing the strip, you may not know as another inmate what this person has, but they're keeping it covered. And in some cases, the inmates will even tell them, listen, if you're not going to remove the tat, put a shirt on. You're not to walk around yard with that tattoo exposed, and whatever. Now you got a guy that's always walking around with a shirt all day. So the next one I got, and I thought this kind of bled right through, was the permanent commitment. So Wilson's tattoos could reflect a permanent commitment to his identity as a criminal and as a killer. And I also connect to that for him. For someone who committed heinous crimes, these tattoos are like scars, not only marking his body, but also his place in the world. His choice to place them on his face shows a lack of remorse or desire to change, signaling to the world that he has embraced his actions and the violent lifestyle that led him there. There's no turning back or hiding from his choices, and the tattoos act as a permanent marker of their commitment. Gangs will even do this too, old school style teardrops, stuff that marks the work that they've done. That's why, some, gang members, if they see the let's say the teardrop old school style, well, who'd you kill? What'd you do for the gang? And these actually do hold some weight. This could connect to maybe there's something on his face that he connects to what he's done. It's like a marker for him. Now, granted, we don't know that. And the only person that could really tell you that most likely would be him, because it could be something that he decides to do that's personal to him. And it's a reminder to him. But it's funny, too, because when they have those markers and they know it could mean, like, let's say another felony or another crime, they've learned how to say that the tattoo means something else, as opposed to them admitting what it really means, which is a connection to what they've done on the streets, which I don't think that would be the case for Wade Wilson. He pretty much seems to have embraced this person and what he's done. So, or this monster image and what he's done. But I think some of the marks on the face, when they do it that way, could symbolize some commitment to either a group, which I don't think that's maybe the case here, or just a commitment to what he's done, or a commitment to who he is or who he wants to be. But what's your thoughts on that permanent commitment, especially because it's here? You can't hide it. It's here.
Yeah. When it's up front and personal like that, he's kind of got no choice but to keep pushing forward with it. Obviously he got those in jail. So, whoever gave him those tats, I'm sure when it came down to the swall stickers, I'm sure whoever gave him them tats, kind of laced him up ahead of time and told him, hey man, if you're going to be rocking these, man, you better be, you better be ready for what comes with it. My gut, just by looking at this dude, I haven't listened to him talk. I haven't, just by looking at him, to me, he looks like a scared little boy who committed a heinous act and knows he's going to a big boy penitentiary. And I think he is tatting up to, try to blend in with the other inmates in the population. But, for everything that he's placed on himself in view, he's not going to have any choice but, especially with the swall stickers. I'm telling you, regardless of whether he's in death row or general population, he's going to get tested. He's going to get checked. And, he's got no choice. And he may have accepted the fact and joined a clique for all we know. But, and that's the picture. You see what I mean? He's a baby-faced kid. And to me, it kind of tells me that, to me personally, I think he's scared. And I think he knows he's headed where he's headed for the rest of his life. And now, he's got two choices. I can either put tattoos on myself and look tough, or, I know I'm going to prison. So I guess it's somewhere for me to join up.
Yeah. And then the last two I got is kind of in line with it. I got cultural and spiritual significance. So though modern context. Oh, wait, real quick. So he could have been thinking about the jail, the guy that did the tattoos. I mean, they do recruit in jails or in prisons. And the person doing the tattoo could have been someone that worked for the gang or someone that whatever would provide the tattoo. But it's funny. I've seen people that have given tattoos to people that weren't official gang members, and they get their ass kicked too. You were not authorized to give that tattoo. I mean, it's the ownership of it all. Okay, so let me get back up to more cultural and spiritual significance. So although in modern context, face tattoos are often associated with criminality or rebellion, some facial tattoos can carry cultural or spiritual significance. Wilson's case, his tattoos may not reflect any cultural meaning, but could serve as a perverse form of self-identity that we talked to that ties to his criminal actions. For some individuals like Wilson, tattoos may signify personal milestones in their criminal life, marking their progression into darker, more violent territories, almost like ritualistic affirmations of their choice. What's funny? He has the ha ha ha. I mean, that could be what he did after he killed somebody. He could have laughed over it. I mean, you don't know how he relates the tattoos to his actions, but some of those tattoos could relate to a moment that he just plays out in his head that now becomes permanently on his skin. So I think, again, it would be great later on when they decide to interview him to ask him, because it's the timing of all these tattoos. The timing he got these tattoos were soon after the crimes he committed. So it could be a connection. It could be something that he did that he wind up wanting to, kind of mark as a remembrance or something, that milestone in that criminal life when he finally crossed the threshold. And as I said, I think the reason why it's also there, where from the neck to the face, whatever it is because he wanted that attention. What's your thoughts on that, Joe, for cultural and spiritual significance?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard until they actually sit down and interview him. But it could be It could be, you know, symbolic of crimes that he's committed that we don't know about. You know, especially like the haha tattoo, that could be him laughing at the world, laughing at authority. You know, the tattoos have so many different meanings that, you know, they're not just in your face and this is what they are anymore. They're not as easy to identify. They're not as easy to get significance as, you know, they were when gangs first erupted in the prison scene. You know, and with him having them on his face, he's trying to tell a story of some sort. I highly doubt it's spiritual, but he's trying to tell a story of some sort.
Yeah, you figure, and also I think maybe that could be something later on that he may wind up telling, and that will get more attention. But I like what you said, because you're right. It could be anti-authority. He could be something over his mouth because he's not saying nothing. The laughing at the face of authority, or the laughing at the face of the judge when I know you're going to give me this sentence. I mean, you know, it does go with that anti-authority, but again, you don't know. You got to kind of ask him and then build the context and then try to see if there's some truth. But, you know, that's another perspective. But maybe he had the ha because he knew he wouldn't be able to laugh in court, you know, out loud, but it's right on his face, you know, so the message is still there. And it's like a quiet laughter. Like no matter what happens, I'm still smiling. You know, I'm still laughing. And the last thing I got is the psychological implications. I don't think this was something that may relate to him, but I thought it'd be interesting just to put in there. I when I was looking up some research on it. So from a psychological perspective, Wilson's decision to mark his face might reflect deeper emotional or psychological issues. His tattoos could be a form of self-expression that masks vulnerability or pain. I'm not going to buy into that. I'm sorry. I'm going to explain something real quick on that. So for a man who committed such violent crimes, tattoos may serve as both an armor and a shield, projecting an image of fearlessness while hiding deeper emotional scars or a desire for control in a chaotic world. His facial tattoo could also be a reflection of his desire completely sever ties with his former self or society. I mean, maybe. But listen, as I said, seeing the interview with his father, this is not someone who is wearing this to cover vulnerabilities. I mean, maybe. I mean, nothing's 100%, but the reason why I think that may not be so much related to Wade Wilson, but you know how you have this nature versus nurture discussion where when you watch, and I don't think it's ever really been discussed like this before, but I'm watching all these specials on these true crimes, and you know, a lot of them fall into like the serial killers, like you know, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, Kemper, all these Melendez's or Mendez brothers, whatever they are. So a lot of people will try to first, they always pick the either or, the extremes. Let's make life difficult. So let's talk about the extremes. It's either a nature issue or a nurture issue. So the nature issue is what's already in you, you know, so you're born with it. And the nurture issue is more of your environment and how you've been created into the monster that you are now. And the reason why I have concerns with that, and only if you look at human behavior, in my opinion, I'm not an expert, but hear me out. So obviously there are some people that believe it's a mixture of both. They believe that it's a mixture of nature versus nurture, and maybe that's the case. Maybe there are people that don't have a high threshold, don't have a high resilience, and when they deal with negativity in their life, they wind up relating to it because it's easier to relate to it than it is to go against it. So they wind up becoming the person that either they hate or they love, just in a unique way. But there's also another avenue that's not really discussed either. You know, when it comes to these heinous crimes, for people different than Wade Wilson, because I think he accepts it and he wants that image, but there are a lot of people that they do what they do, but they don't want to be seen as monsters, but yet they are. So what they do is when you finally got them caught and they're backed at the corner and it's dead to rights, all evidence is on them. You got them. They're going to shift blame. And what they're going to wind up doing is they're going to go right to being the victim. And what do? They talk about their childhood. They talk about all these other things that at this moment could be just an effort to shift blame. And I'm not saying, maybe it's not. Maybe this did create who they were. I don't know. But it's also very timely. It's very timely. You're caught with all the evidence on you, and the natural thing is, okay, well, shit, now you got me, but I still don't want to be this monster, so fuck it, I'm going to blame society. You made me who I am, and my parents made me who I am, so it's a natural thing to shift blame, but that doesn't mean that that's what made them who they were. It just means it's a natural thing to shift blame. I would say, for me, I would lean more towards the nature, because if you have it in you, and then that's where you get the full accountability. It's like, hey, and there's some that have done it because they want the glory behind it all. I think Wade Wilson be one of them, where they're not looking to shift blame. They're looking to get glory. And if you notice, he does have a tattoo that says glory. I don't know if that's related to that, but I'm just thinking right now, but that's because, I want the glory of it all. I accept what I've done. There's no excuses to what I've done, but it's not because I'm trying to take responsibility to make changes. I want to take accountability because I want people to know this was me. This is who I am, and this is what I have embraced. And it's funny because it would be unique if this monster remains, and let's say there is a moment where he does wind up going into a GP setting or some level of interaction with other inmates. Will he be just as vicious to them? Will he wind up killing inmates? We don't know, but I don't see it. But what's your thoughts on this, Joe?
Yeah, number one, I don't see it being a nurtured thing from, the family standpoint. His parents don't strike me as the Manson family, serial family. I think this is something he either picked up along the way through his teenage years into his adulthood, depending on, who he hung out with and who he ran with. I just don't think he was nurtured into this. I think this is actually who he is. But I don't think it's who he is at heart. I think it's something he wants the public to think he is. And, God forbid, should he go to a GP setting for whatever reason, say they overturn his death penalty and give him life, he's got a long, hard road ahead of him, because to me, I think it's all an act. I think it's just an attention getter. I was just reading just a minute ago about, all these women that are sending them pornographic pictures of themselves.
Yep.
It's ridiculous, but my gut feeling is I don't think he's half the person he portrays himself to be. And if he's put in an actual real-time environment, I think he's going to find out he's not even a quarter of who he thinks he is.
It's all about being tested. And again, he does have contact with his real family, but he also has the adopted family. And Joe, look at this. I got this video real quick. It's the guy that he kind of talks about Wade Wilson's tattoos a little bit more specific. So check this out. Let me show you this. So let me hold on a second.
Tattoos that can get you in serious trouble. Wade Wilson edition. First up, we've got the lettering TTG on the left side of his face. That stands for trained to go, which is also another way of saying ready for war. Next up, we've got the writing out of sight on the side of his face. I'm not sure how clearly you can see that, and that will make sense in just a minute. Over to his neck, on the left side, you're going to see the numbers 14. Over to the right side, we find the numbers 88. The symbol 1488 bears ties to white supremacist groupings. That is something I've covered multiple times in the past, and you can...
So guys, just so you know, it's the 14 words, and 88 is HH, Hail Hitler.
Yeah.
If I'm correct. 81 is Hell's Angels, but eighth letter of the alphabet. So 88 is Hail Hitler. And then there's the 14. I'll show you what the 14 words are. Might as well just so you guys could understand it. 14 words, white supremacy. It was found by David Eden Lane, one of the 9 founding members, and it's called the 14 words. And let me get you what those words are. We must secure the existence of our people and our future for white children. And then there was a secondary slogan that said, because the beauty of the white Aryan woman must not perish from the earth. All right, so let me just see. So let me hear the rest of this. Hold on, guys. Oh man, I think let me get, hold on. Let me get
tattoos that can get.
Let me get it back to where it was. Hold on. Did I lose it? You guys are gonna kill me. I think I lost it. I lost it, man. Oh wait. I think I got it.
Tattoos that can
I
get
got
you in
it.
serious trouble. Wade Wilson edition. First up, we've got the lettering TTG on the left side of his face.
Sorry again.
That stands for trained to go, which is also another way of saying ready for war. Next up, we've got the writing out of sight on the side of his face. I'm not sure how clearly you could see that, and that will make sense in just a minute. Over to his neck. On the left side, you're going to see the numbers 14. Over to the right side, we find the numbers 88. The symbol 1488 bears ties to white supremacist groupings. That is something I've covered multiple times in the past, and you can reference that should you want to know more. Over to the right side of his face, you can quite clearly see a very strong Joker theme going on. I don't know if you can make this out, but that reads, "Why so serious?" which, as you know, is a line from Heath Ledger's Joker. To tie the whole theme together, he's also got the mouse stitching, which has actually become quite a popular tattoo as of late. Back over to his neck, you will find the writing "Bred for War," very much carrying on that aggressive style of tattoo, which tells you a lot about his character. Make sure to follow for part 2. Tattoos that can get you in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Joe, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, tattoos. I've said it before. Tattoos don't make a person. They may symbolize some of their beliefs, but they don't make them any more of a man than what they are. To be confirmed as a gang member, down here it takes a lot of evidence in order for us to actually confirm somebody as a gang member, because they actually go into a permanent state database down here, and it follows them wherever they go. So, before we can confirm somebody, we need to make sure that we have plenty of evidence to substantiate it. Tattoos, may give you the shock and awe, may make somebody look like a monster. They may be a monster and just don't give a shit. Or, they're somebody who could be scared to death and, trying to tat up to try to fit in with the big boys. So don't always let the tattoos fool you.
I did find part 2 and part 3. Let's just see it real quick. Hold on, just to see it before we go to close. Here's part 2. I actually, it's an interesting channel. Okay, hold on. This is part 2.
Tattoos that can get you in serious trouble. Wade Wilson edition, part 2. I really didn't think this one here needed explaining, but since you guys really insisted on me talking about it, I guess it's worth mentioning. And aside from the obvious one, there's actually a bigger one up here. Next up, we've got the lettering NMM. And this one, probably one of the hardest ones to decode because there are a couple of different options. The likeliest one of which being a reference from the comic book when the character Wade Wilson gets NMM tattooed on him to remember M-Day, the day when mutants lost their power. What do you think? Okay, the out of sight, out of mind writing on each side of his face. In my opinion, this is a yet another Joker reference. It's a reference to mental illness and how whenever an individual doesn't necessarily show signs or symptoms of mental illness, it gets dealt with in a very superficial level within society, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it. You let me know what you think. And this is going to do it for part 2, but let me know if you want to see a part 3. And make sure to follow.
There is one more I'll show you guys. I want to mention one thing before. I think also, obviously there's a context. So yes, it could be from the Joker. And it could be, maybe he loves the movie. I know he loves the Wade Wilson persona, but also could be maybe he likes the line from the Joker because out of sight, out of mind means he's preparing to be locked away for life.
Yeah.
It could be. And the why so serious is, why is everybody around me so serious about it? I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I granted he could be a fan of Joker, but no one's asking, why is he a fan of that line? Why is that line? How does that apply now to what he's going through? And this is the last one. This is part 3. Just out of curiosity. All right, hold on.
Tattoos and their meaning, part 3. We're taking a look at his hand tattoos. That took a little bit of digging, so let's go. Let's start with the number 31, and there's a couple of different options for that one. Option 1, the 31 angel number can signify a time of new beginnings and fresh opportunities in your life, but only if you take positive actions towards manifesting them. Option 2, being the opposite of unlucky 13, the number 31 can sometimes be seen as a symbol of luck. Moving on, what resembles a mask. Masks and clown faces are very common tattoos among gang members, but it could also be another reference to the Joker. To finish off the right hand, we've got the writing loco on his knuckles, and that just means insane, crazy, sporadic. Moving over to his left hand is the word pray with what looks like an upside down cross, which can be seen as an anti-Christian or a satanic symbol. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to follow me for more of this type of content.
It's funny. I could be wrong on that, but I wonder if for white supremacist groups, do they disrespect the cross by hanging it upside down?
I mean, not necessarily. No.
I think that's
Usually,
a conflict, right?
yeah, it's pretty common.
I think that's a conflict in the tattooing. I don't know. I don't really follow that ideology, obviously.
Right.
As always, guys, the show is here to talk. I think it was a great discussion. Again, nothing's 100%, just a perspective. Definitely something worth creating a dialogue over. That's what the key is to having this, these type of discussions. And we will do a show again on Friday. And who knows what the topic will be. We'll figure it out as we go along. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you, man. How you feeling?
Oh, much better, man. Much better.
You look better. You look happy.
Whew. Yeah, I was.
All right, guys. Stay safe, everyone.